Each year, we ask the deans to nominate a graduating student to speak at commencement. From that group, one student is selected to be the student commencement speaker. This year's student commencement speaker is graduating from Eugene Lang College. Alexander Gleason. Alexander Gleason hails from Massachusetts, where he was involved in numerous service projects aimed at helping others in his community. Most notably, he was a member of STAN, Students Taking Action Now in Darfur, served as class president and student liaison to the school committee, and was a Boy Scout and now an Eagle Scout. Here at the new school, Alex has been a resident advisor to 52 freshman residents, serving as a mentor, sponsoring programming, and participating in a 24/7 on-call duty rotation. Most recently, Alex has been appointed to serve on the Middle States Review Subcommittee, where he works with faculty and staff on the development of the new school's reaccreditation self-study. While Alex will be graduating from Lang College, we are fortunate to have him with us for another year as he completes his MA degree in economics at the New School for Social Research. It's my pleasure to now ask Alex to come forward and deliver his remarks to his fellow graduates.
I want to thank David Van Zandt, Dean Stephanie Browner, Linda Reamer, Lang Advising, my friends, my family, all of my professors for the support and encouragement to this point. I am both grateful and humbled to be this year's student commencement speaker. Before I begin my speech, I would like to take a moment to remember my friend and classmate, Chris McCormick. Chris would have been graduating from Lang today, but passed away before the start of the academic year in a senseless tragedy. I would like to have a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. A number of years ago, there was an article in the Atlantic Monthly discussing the college commencement speech that every person wanted to give, but how very few were ever granted the opportunity. The author bemoaned the life lessons he never got to impart on his fellow classmates and talked about what he would have said if given the time and recognition to speak. I have been given the beautiful gift to impart whatever words of wisdom I have collected in the short 20 years of my life to pass on to you, my fellow graduates. Before I began to write my speech, I thought about what subject to tackle. I considered discussing how we live in an age of fracture, a time when our politics, history, culture, and vision for the future have been disaggregated into a war of ideas by the various sides of the political and ideological spectrum. But this seemed a little too gloomy for a commencement. I then thought about discussing my discipline, economics. Modern economics is governed by what we call Neoclassical Theory. Neoclassical Theory rests on the assumption that all people are rational, everyone has perfect information, and people are not unemployed, but rather choosing leisure over work. Surrounded by artists, musicians, philosophers, liberal arts students who have been educated to address the world in a real way and not to simply see things as a Gedanken experiment, this too seemed fairly inappropriate. I then thought about what connected me to my fellow classmates. The writings of Karl Marx? Sure, but how many times do you need to hear about commodity fetishism, exploitation, and the various opiates of the masses? My thoughts finally brought me to the one person that I believe could guide my speech, Stephen Sondheim. Stephen Sondheim is a musical composer who was once considered avant-garde, but is now old guard. I was once told that you don't check your mind with your coat at a Sondheim show, and after seeing all of his revivals in the last few years, I can agree. You may ask how Stephen Sondheim relates to my time at Lang and the New School. At most universities, economics majors have a course diet causing the discipline to look more like engineering and less like the social science it was intended to be. When I arrived at Lang as a freshman, I knew I wanted to study economics, but I wanted to branch out, to possess a worldly philosophy, as Robert Heilbronner, the author of The Worldly Philosophers and New School Economist, would talk about. Reaching out past the dismal science, I took a course on Stephen Sondheim with Fael and Silverman. Professor Silverman stressed the ambiguity of life's choices. We take roads in life that we don't necessarily choose, but you're either a poet, or you're a lover, or you're, well, you. To me, this seems like the fundamental building block of a new school education. Reach out. Learn as much as you can. Learn about things outside of your discipline, and see where life takes you. That's the strength of the new school. Seeing the woods through the trees. Seeing life is about the big picture. So I went back and I listened to the various Sondheim records in my possession. A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, Anyone Can Whistle, Into the Woods, Company, Sunday in the Park with George, and many others. When I began to look back at his music, I realized Stephen Sondheim has taught me many life lessons, but there are three in particular that I want to share with you. The first lesson worth sharing comes from the 1984 musical Sunday in the Park with George. Centering on the painter George Seurat, Sunday in the Park with George focuses on the painter's fixation on completing his most famous work, A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of La Grande Jatte. One of the central messages of the show is the deceptively simple sounding, art isn't easy. Everything we do is an art. Whether we express our work as painting, literature, finding a derivative, or the testing of a hypothesis. When we seriously apply ourselves to our work, it shows. Our arts require patience, perseverance, and most importantly, a work ethic in order to put it together as a final picture. Understanding that art isn't easy also means following your dreams, and while this may be slightly cliche, it needs to be said. Even if our dreams don't lead to monetary success, if others don't share your vision, or if sacrifices have to be made, hold on to your dreams. Hold on to your idealism. The second lesson comes from an obscure musical from 1964 called Anyone Can Whistle. Running for a total of only 21 performances, the New York City Center presented the show in the 2010 Encore series as a weekend revival. Still appropriate for our political climate today, Anyone Can Whistle is the story of small-town political corruption. The city comptroller and mayor attach a water pipe to a rock in town and claim water miraculously spouts from the rock in order to attract tourists. The protagonist of the story, Dr. Hapgood, is compelled to out the city administrators, to which he is told, "Don't." His response, "Everybody says don't, but I say do," is the second lesson I want to impart. Institutions and people telling us not to do uncomfortable things constantly confront us, and it is our moral obligation as scholars and activists to challenge that paradigm. This means when income inequality becomes so drastic people are forced to rally and demonstrate in parks, or when constitutional rights are stripped in the name of security and fighting terrorism, we stand up to these injustices. Our university was founded on the principle of critical dissent, and to not stand up against these things should go against not only our morals, but also our higher education, regardless of the discipline. The final lesson I want to leave you with comes from the 1981 musical. Comes from the 1981 musical, most apropos for a college commencement. Merrily We Roll Along. The story of three friends, Merrily We Roll Along, moves backward in time to show how three young, idealistic people become jaded with success and age. After the two main characters experience their first great success, one mentions to the other, "Success is like failure. It's how you perceive it. It's what you do with it, not how you achieve it." This is my final lesson. Our hard work does not always pay off. We don't always knock our projects out of the park, especially with an unemployment rate over 8%. But there's still a lesson to be learned. When we fail, we learn. We should treat failure as an opportunity and know that sometimes it is okay to fail, because in the end, yesterday is done, and merrily we'll roll along, catching our dreams. We have been given a beautiful gift here at the New School. The gift has been a worldly education, teaching us to be critical, to think, and to push the envelope. I encourage you to take these lessons and to apply them to your career, aspirations, and life. Remember all of the text you have digested, the discourse, and the intellectual connections. It's our time, New School University, so let us go out and win over the world. Breathe it in.